So guys, I'm following up on my promise. We're reading from the Paranormal board. I thought about a name of this series, and it's really, really creative. I mean, I'm reading from Reddit, and I'm calling it Reading Reddit. I know. Episode 1, Reddit/Paranormal. That's what this is. And we're going to read some of the stories. I'm going to feed back on them, share my thoughts. But you guys also, please share your thoughts in the comment section underneath. Do you think those stories are real? Do you think it's all fake? Which ones of those are real? Let me know. We're gonna jump right into it. Here's a short one from EarthquakeBird696, posted 22 hours ago. I saw something that looked like Valak, the nun. You know the horror movies, The Nun? This happened 11 to 12 years ago. Me and my friend were walking in the park. It was late evening and streetlights were on. As we were walking and talking, I suddenly stopped in terror and could not say a word. I saw a tall figure of a nun floating above the ground. It was very tall. I could not see its feet. It did not have eyes and the whole figure was glowing? ? My friend asked what happened and I silently pointed at the nun. When he saw it, he was terrified, same as me, and we both ran away from the park. We both saw the same thing and he was a bit of a skeptic before seeing the nun. Later on, in 2018, there was a movie released, and when I saw the poster, it reminded me of what I saw in the park. Okay, I mean, what gives me a little bit confidence in the truth of this story is that it's quite short. Normally, when you have people who make stories up, those might be, writing students and people who have an interest in, writing an eloquent, well-articulated story. This is not particularly eloquent or well-articulated. This seems to me like someone just wants to tell the story what happened to them. I might be wrong, obviously speculation, but I mean, that makes it a bit creepy, that it's nearly so pragmatic, if you know what I mean. Known a thing replies, that's trippy. I haven't seen the nun, but I've seen those shadow people a few times. I saw one about a year ago around midnight. I was walking and this thing was wearing all black and walked past by me, but it didn't have a face. It was just blank. I looked back and it was gone. Then, on my way back to the apartment, I saw it at the entrance of the complex, so I ran towards it and it vanished. It's interesting, these reports of people seeing shadow figures or some kind of appearances that don't touch the ground, that are hovering above the ground and potentially don't have feet. That's a report you hear a lot. Independently from many people. For example, I visited an old castle once here in the UK, and as we were walking through these hundreds of year old basement, with these arches, the tour guide also told this story. It was just me and 2-3 other people, and he told the story that he also witnessed apparitions moving through the basement, disappearing into the wall and never really touching the ground. It's also, I've read the theory once, obviously it's all ridiculous speculation, but I've read the theory once that is because the height of Earth changes over time, right? So at the time when that ghost would have been alive, he would have walked on a different height. Right, so that's why his body is up. That's why it looks like they're floating, because the idea is that their movement and their actions are kind of recorded somehow. That's this is completely ridiculous what I'm saying right now, by the way, but some people believe it. And it's, I guess, a theory or something. But the idea that the person that this ghost comes from is recorded at the time when the earth, the height of the soil was at a different height. That's why they're recorded at a different, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. Yeah, drunk BITCH says, big, dark and scary. This happened quite a while back, but my husband and his brother still constantly bring it up. Back when Bill was still married, my husband was over visiting him one night. They were chilling in the backyard and had some living room blinds open. They were on the far side of the yard playing with airsoft pistols. But for some reason, both looked up into the living room window at the same time. A large figure was walking across the room towards their daughter's bedroom. Did you? Yup, they both ran into the house, but found nothing. They both described it as being black or dark brown, furry, long snout and wearing a black coat. My husband calls it like a wolf monster. Although they couldn't make out any further details of his face other than the snout. His daughters did have some night where they woke up screaming and crying, and Bill was always greatly concerned by it. His wife always said it was nothing. In fact, when she moved out and they got divorced, the night terror stopped. Husband and Bill believed this, whatever it is, moved out with her. Okay, I don't know about monsters moving out with women, but that's a creepy story, right? My oh my, imagine that. You're in the backyard looking at your house or whatever, and you see a giant black creature moving past the window inside your house. Holy smokes. Even with like a snout, right? It's not like a creature that looks like a person wearing a coat or whatever. It has a snout. That's creepy. I mean, obviously, we can't really verify any of this. And to be honest, the part where she kind of goes into the dialogue, right? Like she's like quoting, "Did you?" Yup. It's very much like taking a lesson from a textbook about story writing and, embedding it. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to read what I see here. And it feels to me a little bit someone had a good time writing this. And it doesn't feel as pragmatic as the previous one. Also love the comment down here. Bill Cosby. Let's move on. AA Life Pursuit. Posted 8 hours ago. Las Vegas ghost experience. Has anyone else experienced paranormal activity at the D Hotel in Las Vegas? During my last night in Vegas, I stayed at this hotel alone and I had a super freaky experience. I was exhausted from a hike earlier in the day with my cousins, which had an earlier flight than me. This hotel was cheap and nice-ish. That night, I was too tired to go out to party, so I stayed in. I sent a video to my sister telling her the hotel was nice and that I was safe. I passed out from exhaustion with all the lights on watching TV. Around 3 a.m., I heard a loud noise or loud noises banging in the bathroom. That woke me up in terror. I got up, looked in the bathroom and nothing. I looked out the hotel door peephole and nothing. I walked into the hallway, nothing. Then, as I walked back to my bed, I noticed it. The chair that I had pushed into the desk/counter was pulled back all the way to the bed. I felt chills, but went straight to the chair and pushed it back in as if nothing happened. I could feel something is watching me, but I tried my best to act cool. I changed the channel from the infomercial on TV to something else and eventually fell back to sleep. In the morning, I sat in the bed and the chair had been moved back next to the bed. At first, I thought maybe I was going crazy and I had dreamt everything, but then I looked back at the video I sent my sister the night before and the chair was inside the desk. I didn't get up at all after taking the video the night before all the noises. I wasn't crazy. There was definitely some kind of ghost in the room. I don't know about that, but okay. I've just been wondering if anyone else has experiences like that in this hotel. I can't seem to shake it off. That's a scary story, and I tell you why I think that has a little bit more validity. Because it's so mundane. It's like a chair moving. If you would want to write a spectacular story that people want to share, that's potentially exposing you as a great writer with imagination, right? You wouldn't write a story like that, where a chair moves. At least kind of that would be my argument. Of course, you can argue exactly the other way and say, no, you would go for the simple thing, to draw people in. But I think it works really well here. It sounds like something that could happen. And to be honest, like he says, I can't seem to shake it off. That would be the same for me. Something like that would happen to me. Something so small, but you just can't explain it. It just makes no sense. I also don't think I could shake it off. It would really haunt me for quite a while. Thing is, he's like, oh, there was definitely some kind of ghost in the room. I don't know about that. People always jump to these conclusions. They're immediately on board of the ghost train. It must be ghosts. It's like, there's no evidence for any of this. Sure, it's unexplained things happening. Nobody can argue with that. But whether it's a ghost, right, it immediately implies that some dead person raised from the grave and moved the chair. It's like, hold on. So far, only the chair moved. Okay, yes, that's bizarre, but we haven't seen anything else. So people jump to conclusions. We have to be careful with this. So let's read some of the comments. I live in Vegas and stayed at the Artesian Hotel Boutique with my then boyfriend for a little staycation and change of scenery. We were up till 4 or 5 a.m. and the sun was starting to rise. At this point, we were ready to catch some Z's. So we laid down in the same bed with him facing the window/wall and me facing the rest of the hotel room, door/bathroom, and the other bed that no one was using. In the hotel room there was a large TV, some strange paintings, and a desk with a chair and a lamp on top of it sitting right in front of a mirror. I remember turning on the lamp before laying down. Me and my ex were still awake at the time, talking for a little bit, while I'm facing the door and the rest of the room. Suddenly the light turns off by itself, and I shoot up in my bed and show my boyfriend. He agrees and checks if any cables might have turned it off, but the light was made so that you need to reach in near the light bulb to twist it on or off. It was super freaky, and if you've never been to the Artesian, I recommend looking up pictures of it. We're walking there like deer caught in the headlights, whatever. Okay, So this woman had a light coming on and off. That's not paranormal. Why is this here? Come on, man. A light coming off in a hotel. Where's people's rationality? Is it creepy? Yes. Is it paranormal? Most likely not. It might just be an old lamp, that has like a little electrical problem inside the lamp that you can't see. I don't know, but that's like 1,000,000 times more likely than a ghost pushing a button. Okay, like rationality. The ghost of my family cat. We're not gonna read that. Death comedy. Posted this 9 hours ago. It's got already 300 upvotes. Let's read. Possible Skinwalker is stalking our home. Advice? ? If you don't know what a Skinwalker is, you really should watch some of the presentations by George Knapp on the matter. It's all rooting back to the Skinwalker Ranch. It's a creepy story. It's a set of creepy stories that happened in a certain area that can't really be explained. I would look into it. It's really interesting. So, Death Comedy says, my girlfriend and I live on a ranch in northern Colorado, and just beyond our property line is a small river with a thicket of woods on either side of it. It's dense enough that you can't see the back neighbor's light through the woods. Several months back, we found this spot while exploring the river that seems to be a den of some kind. When we happened upon it, there were raccoons and rabbits strewn about and picked clean. Quick acknowledgement, there is a foxhole near the fence, but it is the opposite side of the property and there's a large pile of branches which houses all numbers of bunnies and squirrels. That's the fox hunting ground, not this den which is nearly 300 yards away across the barbed wire fences. Anyways, the den reeked of decomposition, but the corpses we could see were relatively fresh. The den was embedded in the bank of the river where some concrete had crumbled in, exposing the room which was probably used by some farmer to dam the water. We got this feeling that something isn't right and we went back home. We'd hoped that that would be the end of it, that we just let our imaginations run wild in the moment, but things persisted. Now, we walk our dog on the property. He is usually an off-leash dog, but something has been grabbing his attention. He continues to pull in the direction of the den. He has slipped through the fence more than once, even injuring himself on the fence to try and dig into the ground on top of the den. We've resorted to putting him back on his leash to make sure he won't try to go towards the den. He still pulls on occasion, but he's getting better. On one occasion, we had just gotten new tenants on the property with horses while we were walking around the mound of branches, and my dog began pulling lightly towards the den. We walked, and before I realized where I was, we were at the den. I felt nothing, no paranoia, no nothing. I felt like a moth looking into a zapper light. But something shook me. A sound. It sounded like a horse on the other side of the fence. A sound coming from the entrance of the den that I couldn't see from the angle I was at. It sounded like a horse huffing, slapping its lips in that way horses and really stressed people do. A horse couldn't be down there. There was no way. I took my dog and we went back to the house with my head on a swivel. I have always felt skeptical of even this circumstance. It had to be the river making some sound, or it could have been my imagination until today. I was walking my dog again. He often asked to go out in the evenings as well as in the mornings. This took place after the sun was well down. I would walk my huskies with a lightsaber in my hand. One of the quality dueling sabers, meant to take a beating and to hit hard, but most of all it was to provide our walks light and safety. Today is a particularly chilly night, and the day above reminded me of some post-apocalyptic hellscape. As we approached the branch pile to complete our loop, I heard it again. The bellowing, only meters from my head. Big and loud and intimidating. I froze in my tracks. I could see our next door neighbor's lights shining through the garden, and there was no horse. My dog pulled and reared, his hair standing up. We ran. I couldn't mind my dog's comfort when worried for his safety. I practically had to yank him away from running back to wherever he was fixated on. When I got back into the house, I told my girlfriend what happened. She recommended I look here for advice. So here I am. What do you guys think? Any advice on cleansing property or getting rid of disembodied rot horses? As I was writing this, my girlfriend went out to the car to grab a lighter, and she said that she heard something, the same thing, near our shed. We both verified during our occurrences that the horses were both in their pens. This was easy as the tenant who owns them keeps a light on them all night. Right. So, it's a bit of a spooky story, but to be honest, It sounds to me like someone just has a predator somewhere in their area, and maybe a bigger one. And it could be potentially dangerous. And to be honest, it's one of these stories where I kind of have to appeal to rationality in people. Because looking at this story, the obvious rational thought would be to say, hey, there's probably a predator here. Maybe we should get a hunter on board or someone who knows about wildlife. But instead, people are like, could it be a skinwalker? It's like, no, look, there are many, many other options of what this could be. That it's a skinwalker is like pretty unlikely. But it's because people watch all these documentaries and people suck up all that information. So they jump to these weird conclusions. Anyway, it's not a bad story. It got scary at some point. Let's move on. Nano Cola posted 16 hours ago. I've lived in the same house for my whole life, knowing that it's haunted. This is my first post since discovering Reddit/paranormal. I didn't think I was going to make a post about my personal experiences, but I was encouraged to by a friend. I found that reading people's stories on here made me feel less alone, and hopefully I can do that for someone else. Or at least I can get a new perspective. So, to start off, I, 25, and my family moved into my house a week after I was born. I have 2 older siblings and I am the youngest. Yes, if they are older, then you are the youngest. My mother likes having control over things and has always been inclined to help friends and family, so naturally my house, as I've grown up, has constantly been a place where people are moving in and out. My grandparents lived with us until they passed away. My grandma on my dad's side as well. We've had family friends live with us temporarily, uncles, some of my friends, and exes. To sum it up, change in the house is constant. As for the experiences, I've always been heightened to unexplainable and supernatural events. I don't want to drown this out with every little detail, but the story I have is a heavy handful of things that happened when I was younger that I've never been able to explain, and now it's carried into my adult life. My mom, my siblings, and I are typically the ones to experience things up until recently. Normal things like doors opening and closing on their own, sinks being on unexplainably. The bigger one is seeing people that aren't there. For example, my siblings hearing distinctive shoes I used to wear walking up the hallway that only leads to my room and the bathroom. They came out to follow me up the hall to tell me something, and I'm not home. My uncle, who's recently living with us, was sitting in the living room later that night. Everybody's in bed. He looks up and sees my mom go up the hallway from her bedroom and gets up to follow her because he thinks something is wrong or she's sick. She has no reason to walk up to the hall because there's a bathroom in her room. To his surprise, and no one else's, she's still asleep in bed. Nobody was down the hallway. My old bedroom in the house is a renovated efficiency built into half of our garage. It led into a small hallway that contained the washer/dryer and the heavy side door to my house that is the primary way of people to enter or exit the home. We absolutely never use our front door. The hallway also had a door leading into the rest of the house. More than once, while alone in my room, I would hear intense banging on my bedroom door. This wasn't abnormal during the day because I play video games and listen to music loudly. So that's the only way my parents or siblings can get my attention. However, the knocks would happen in the middle of the night with everyone asleep and with no explanation for it. I also at the time had 2 dogs who would bark wildly when it happened. The one night in particular that this happened that terrified me beyond belief, I was home completely alone. My family was on vacation, one of my siblings had since moved out and the other one was never home. I was excited to have the house to myself because of how rare an occasion like that was. So I'm home from work, I worked nights and I would get home around 1 a.m. I bring the dogs into the room with me, I put on some music and I start relaxing. Then come 3 loud bangs on my bedroom door. The dogs go absolutely crazy, my heart sinks. This having happened before and since been accepted as paranormal to me and my family caused me to run to my door and fling it open. Nobody was there. Nobody is there. The dogs would normally run at a physical intruder in the house and they would not leave the threshold of the room. I called my sibling who lived about 5 minutes down the road. They stayed on the phone with me, panicked that someone was in the house and wanted me to leave the dogs and go outside. I understand this is a natural reaction and maybe it's a bit stupid of me, but I was absolutely certain that this was not a physical intruder. I was sure no one was in the house. Like I said, we have a very heavy side door that was locked at the time, and even if it were not, you can always hear it open and close because it's loud and sort of made of metal. I didn't leave the house and instead had some friends to offer to drive over and sit with me for a while until I calmed down. They asked me to go back home with them, but I opted out and stayed with my dogs. Nothing happened for the rest of the night. About 6 months after this happened, I fully moved into a different room in my house. Maybe in part because the garage was seemingly a source of activity. About a year ago, I came home from work late and was on the phone with a friend in a generally good mood. I walked into my house from that side door and immediately had an onset feeling of palpable tension and anxiety. I told my friend that something felt off, but continued on through my house and tried to change the subject. I had food in my hand and I was standing near my kitchen table when I heard a loud noise immediately behind me, sounding very similar to a broom falling over onto tile. I whipped around to see nothing at all that would have made that noise. Again, told my friend that something strange was happening and he urged me to take my dog into my bedroom, close the door and eat all the food I brought home with me. Essentially, ignore it, try to calm down. I get in bed, turn the TV on and I start to feel relaxed. My dog is in bed with me. He's a small breed and lying right up against me. He's very food aggressive, so when anyone comes near his food, he will growl and bare his teeth. Normally, we just find it funny. So I'm eating and he shoots up with his hair completely raised, baring teeth, growling while looking at the empty space next to my bed. My heartbeat starts racing and I nearly threw my food off of me when he lunged and nipped at something. Absolutely nothing, right next to me. Writing and recounting this still makes me particularly anxious. I hang up on my friend and I call my siblings again over to calm myself down after I calm my dog down. But while he's no longer stressed or growling, he is following something around the room with his eyes. I FaceTimed my siblings at this point and I showed them and they're in complete agreement. He is looking at something. This went on for another 20 minutes until he grows tired and falls asleep, and the rest of the night nothing else out of the ordinary would happen. So there are parts of this story that are extremely creepy, right? People seeing kind of doppelgangers of other people that they know. And that's a reoccurring theme. A lot of people report that. I've seen people talking in a very genuine and convincing way that they were sitting in front of the TV, that their daughter or something was out. And at some point the door just opens, daughter comes in, walks in front of the TV in front of everyone, doesn't say a word, goes to the kitchen. Everyone's like, what's she doing? So they go in, nobody's in the kitchen. And she's nowhere to be found. So they call her and she's like, no, I'm 25 minutes away from home. I'm not even close. Like, that can't, I don't know what happened. Stories like that are reoccurring. But at the same time, when people go crazy about a dog looking at something or growling at something in a room, all my alarm bells go off, okay? Because, I understand this animal and you imagine that you can read this animal and, irrational. It's a dog. Okay, dogs are irrational sometimes. Again, I'm not saying it's a lie or whatever, but people are jumping to conclusions, right? People are like, oh, well, he growled at something that isn't there, so must be a ghost. There's absolutely no other possibility that it's a dead person who has risen from the grave and is now trying to steal my dog's food. I don't know the answer. I'm just saying we're kind of skipping a few possibilities here, it seems. So let's finish the story off. So I'm currently out of the state visiting my boyfriend. I was away from the house for about 2 weeks when my mom calls me to tell me something she finds funny. Her, my dad, and my uncle were all in the living room midday when they hear 3 loud pounds at the front door. My dog is going crazy and my mom picks him up, calm him down. My dad went out to the front to take a look because from the inside there are huge windows and you can see out in front of the door, but nobody seemed to be standing there. My mom is walking down the hallway to her room with the dog, now when again 3 loud pounds. This time at the side door. At this point my dad and uncle are doing a perimeter check around the house, checking behind the cars in the driveway and looking up and down the street. Unsurprisingly again, nobody is around the house. While we do have some laughs about the past activity, I'm becoming increasingly aware that we may have to do something about the house and possibly even me. Since being up at my boyfriend's, I have had 2 instances of unexplainable activity that I'll go into if anyone cares for me to elaborate. That also goes for the stories of when I was younger. This turned out to be longer than I expected, but let me know what you think. TLDR, my house is almost 100% likely to be haunted, scary knocks, blah, blah. So in the last paragraph, what kind of stands out to me there is it nearly feels a bit like a person is looking for patterns. It's a super common problem, right? If some things are happening in your life, for example, some paranormal activities like that, people just start looking for patterns. They're like, oh yeah, no, I'm now somewhere else in the country. Yesterday, you know, a cup fell down and smashed. I didn't touch that. That must be haunted. It must be haunted. And furthermore, I must be the kind of conduit for that haunting. It's like, yeah, again, we're kind of jumping to conclusions here. So far, I've only seen a cup falling down in this particular example. So I think that's a big problem with a lot of these stories. Doesn't make them less entertaining and possibly doesn't make them less true. It's absolutely possible. I mean, I'm speculating about its truth or whether people are saying the truth. Absolutely possible that all these stories are true. So, guys, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments underneath. Which one was the scariest story? Which one gave you the goose pimples? Leave that down in the comments. Smash the like. Smash the subscribe, do all the things. I hope you enjoyed the video. We're going to read another Reddit next time. If you have suggestions, we have a few more suggestions on another video, so I'm going to work down that list. But if you have more suggestions, feel free to leave those down in the comments underneath. I'd appreciate any comment or any piece of feedback that you leave as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.